What's up, y'all? Snipes and Snarfblatts, your unauthorized place for Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm. And here I am, dressed up for my jolly holiday with Mary, and now I'm here to answer the question, was Mary Poppins Return practically perfect in every way? And the answer to that is, it's complicated. I think I did this film a grave injustice, and I watched the original right before going into the sequel. And the original, there's a reason why 50 plus years later we're making a sequel to this movie. The original is, if not one of, the greatest musical of all time. It advanced film in so many different ways, and special effects and things I can't even begin to name. It advanced film in so many different ways. And it also it was great. The performances were great. Every single thing about it still stands the test of time today when I watched it before going into this one. That said, I think it set the bar so high that this one just couldn't even measure up, even if it was practically perfect in every way. And I'm not saying this is a bad movie by any means. This movie might be a great movie, and I know it's a really, really good movie. I enjoyed so much of it. It's just, as I said before, the bar was set so high by the original, like a 50-plus year classic, that it shows in this one, because there's things that you wanted and things that you didn't want that just weren't there. And even though this was a great movie, I'm going to go through the things and know that I'm nitpicking because I'm comparing this to the original, even though that's not a fair comparison. It's a comparison that just has to be there because it is a sequel. And that's its biggest success, to tell you the truth. The biggest success of this movie is it is a really, really good, natural sequel to the original. The stories is totally new. It's not just a rehash of let's go through the motions of Mary Poppins. The story is totally new, and the story is great. You get with Michael and Jane, the kids from the original, and they're about to lose their childhood house. Well, and Michael is actually a widowed Michael who is about to lose his house, raising 3 kids at the same time. And that's where, like I said, it sounds so simple, but the story has so many messages and parallels to the original that it just pays so much good homage, and at the same time builds on what the original gave you in the first place. And that is where I think this movie succeeded the most. After that is Emily Blunt's just grand performance as Mary Poppins. She was amazing. She was no Julie Andrews, but who could be Julie Andrews? They have passed this on to the most logical person to pull this off as grand as she performed it. And they were really smart they didn't have her just be Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins. They weren't saying imitate Julie Andrews and do what she did. She actually got to bring a whole new vibe and a whole new feel to Mary Poppins. And they say that Mary Poppins comes around when you need her. And this also proves that she not only comes around when you need her, she comes in the form that you need her. Because even though I said this parallels the original, there's new reasons why Mary Poppins is there, and you kind of get a more cheeky Mary Poppins. Like she's a little more oomph than there was in the original, and there's more to her, and it kind of just gives another layer to the character. Honestly, I was telling myself I'd love to see a trilogy to see that when she comes back again, she has a little even different aspect to herself. That's one of the things I really, really loved about Emily Blunt's performance in this movie, is she made it hers, but at the same time, it was Mary Poppins in every single way possible. And that gets me to one of the things that kind of I felt was a little lackluster in the part of Lin-Manuel Miranda. His singing was amazing. The dance choreography was amazing. My only problem, I think, and this goes right back into comparisons, is Lin-Manuel Miranda's character was no Bert. And it's mainly because there was not the energy that Bert had. As much as I loved Mary Poppins in the original film, in my eyes, that film, as much as it was Julie Andrews to succeed with, it was also Dick Van Dyke's to succeed with, because if those two didn't have each other in that film would have had a big hole in it. And I couldn't help but notice a small version of that hole when it came to Lin. This was a big part for him to pull off in one of his actual first movie roles, and it was a major part to throw on him, and he did great. He did really, really great for what he had. He was up against Burt, and I hate it. This film's going to draw parallels to that classic because of that, but it's going to, because that's what it was set up for. It's obviously any sequel, especially a sequel to one of the greatest films of all time, is going to have small little things there that you're just going to latch onto. And for mine, there was a real lack of Burt's energy in that side character to Mary, and I felt like if that energy was there, then it would have just made it that much better. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, once again, this is a bad movie. It might be a great movie, and it's definitely a really, really good movie. I can't keep saying that. It's just, it's got a high bar to set. The music, for instance. The music was great, but I found myself walking out of this film still humming "It's a Jolly Holiday with Mary," and I could not get it out of my head that the music from the original is just timeless classic. And that's why this movie had an unfair spot, because a lot of people are probably going to compare it to the original. And one word of advice is, I would say, do not watch the original immediately before watching this one. Just go in with what's in your memory and what you know, and I think you'll love this movie that much more. There's a couple differences. The kids were amazing, by the way, before I get off the whole cast. These kids, the three kids that play Michael's kids, are amazing. The Banks children, they found some little actors in these kids, and they were great. And there are times where this movie will make you laugh. There are times where this movie will make you cry. This movie will make you go through the whole field of emotions. It's a little more Broadway than the original. I felt like there was a lot more choreographed dance numbers here and there, and less that actual fell under the movie, but that didn't take away from it at all. There was a character, Meryl Streep's character. I would have liked for there to use her a little differently. They went into another whole Broadway dance and song skit with her, and I really think her character needed the Ed Wynn treatment from the original. That's the guy, her uncle, who was laughing all the time, and he laughed himself up to the ceiling so they could have their tea party in the ceiling, right? That was a great scene, and it added a whole lot of comedy to the original instead of just the song, hit song. And I think this one kind of could have used that, and that would have been a perfect spot to let them use it. Once again, like I said, I'm nitpicking because this is totally in comparison to the original, which is not fair by any means, but it has to happen. Now, their version of the Chim Chimmery scene, which, I mean, that's the best I could use it to call it, is the Trip the Light Fantastic scene. It was amazing. The choreography and everything in there, it was breathtakingly amazing. As were the visuals, the animated sequence. Just the visuals, period, in this movie were breathtaking. Some of the most beautiful colors were used, and there's heart to this film, a lot of heart, and a lot of people cared while making this movie, and you can really tell because it comes off as you watch it. And I can't help but keep saying, this is a very, very good, if not great movie. I just don't know if it's going to hold that classic status that the original does, because it's just a notch behind it. But just a notch behind it is in a really good place to be when you're being compared to the original Mary Poppins. So, all in all, I really enjoyed this movie. I would suggest anyone to go see it, that especially if you've loved the original. Just remember when you do go see it that you're going to go see it based on not looking for it to hold up to the original, but just looking for it to continue that love and continue that story that was in the original in the first place. And I think if you go into it with that, you're going to enjoy it a lot more than if you actually try to sit through the first one and bleed right into this one. Because you remember Mary Poppins, whether you think you do or don't. You remember Mary Poppins. You remember the magic. You remember everything that's there. And this will help you build on that and go right back into the memories, especially if you don't have it implanted in your brain in the first place. And I mentioned the Bert character and the fact that Dick Van Dyke just had more energy than Lin in his part. And when he comes on screen, Dick Van Dyke's, his guest appearance, to say the least, he don't just steal the scene from one person. He steals the scene from everybody just being there. And I think that right there is a testament to the small amount that I really think was missing from this movie. And that is the fact that Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews, they created real magic when they were on the screen in that first film. And there's not a pair-up like that in this one. You get a great, just perfect rendition of Mary Poppins from Emily Blunt. And it's so good that everyone else just seems to kind of falter around her. And this is really Mary Poppins' movie, even more so. The original was Mary Poppins' movie, because like I said, in my eyes, that original Mary Poppins, it would have been nothing without Bert's character. Bert set the tone. And while Lin-Manuel sets the tone in this one, I feel like with a little more energy there, they could have really recaptured that magic if they had just both firing at full speed. But once again, nitpicking all the way, this was a great movie. I would suggest everyone to take your family. This is a total family movie. You will laugh, you will cry, you will walk out of this movie loving each other more than you did in the first place. And you will probably even love life just that much more. I highly recommend this. Check in the comments, look down in the description. I'm going to have links to the site later on throughout the weekend. I'm going to go ahead and write a review that'll tear this thing apart and break it down a whole lot more and tell you everything I liked and everything I didn't like about it. But at its heart, it is a great movie. I highly enjoyed it, and I would recommend anyone to go see it. Just don't have your expectations based on a 50-plus year classic that still holds its own today, because those are unfair expectations. Like I said, check the comments, check the site, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Give us a like and subscribe, because we're not only going to do more of these videos, we're going to really dive into some Disney news coming up in the near future. So I don't really have anything else to say, and I was told that if you don't have anything else to say, the best thing to say is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.